Hi, I'm Roger Bradley, pastor of Church on the Rock. Around here, Easter is extremely important to us. In fact, some of the greatest lessons from the Bible we gain from the week before the crucifixion and resurrection Sunday. What would you do if you knew you only had 1 week left to live? Who would you try to mentor? Who would you talk to? What things would you teach? These and other questions are things that we're going to explore over the next few days. This is Passion Week. Join us as we explore these life-changing lessons together.
The theology of Tuesdays. And I think that quite possibly Tuesdays could be the most mundane day of the week. I don't know about you, but it is for me. But think about it this way. Sundays, they're usually filled with busying yourself at church. And if you're like us and you live on the coast and maybe if it's sunny and beautiful outside, where maybe after church we're running to the islands or we're going off to the beach. And then on Mondays, well, dreaded Mondays. We all know what Mondays really are. That's the day we wake up and remember what we didn't get done last week, and we rush trying to get it done on Monday, and those dozens of things in our offices where we're trying to catch up. And that's probably because on Friday that we were so busy checking Facebook and our email and texting one another, planning out that fun day that we're going to have on Saturday. And well, there's Wednesday. Well, that's the day that we all scream hump day at one another and look at Geico commercials one point or another. And something about looking forward to the weekend. And even Thursdays, well, it gives us that feeling of there's only one more day in the week. But Tuesdays, there's something about Tuesdays. They sort of land flat, if you would, and it's usually filled with stuff that didn't get done on Mondays. And it's before we really start planning for the next part of the week. It's Tuesday. But my question is, what if this were your last week? What would your Tuesday look like? The rest of the world is still stuck in the humdrum normal trap that we're usually stuck in of terrible Tuesdays, and meanwhile, you're rushing around screaming, time's running out. You want people to have urgency, to know that this is your last week. You want them to have the same gumption that they have on a Thursday or a Friday, but they don't because it's only Tuesday and it's flat. So here's my confession of the night. I'm going to give you my usual Tuesday. Usually on Tuesday, I'm running from one appointment to another. I try to fill my calendar up. I've got my day planned out even early in the morning. I've got it marked every single hour. It's calendared, it's ready, and I know exactly where I need to be and when. I head out the door with a plan that gets me to each location at exactly that right moment. And before I can get to the end of my street, at least for me, someone is already there slowing me down just a little bit. I'll have to confess a little, I probably muffle something under my breath that's a little less than Christian. And somehow or another, I tend to calm myself down as I mentally rearrange my plan, and I cut out that stop at Hardee's I was going to make because I probably didn't need it anyway, right? That's just part of it. That's it. It's Tuesday. Then I see it. There's an opportunity. There's a double yellow line that is already causing a problem. It's holding me back, but I can see in the distance that double yellow line is turning into dashes, and I start getting excited. And then after waiting on that oncoming driver that is obviously thinking it's still Sunday, then all of a sudden I make a run for it, and I'm free and I'm excited. I'm going to recalibrate my entire schedule. I'm going to figure everything out, and all of a sudden Tuesday seems to allow just a breath, and I can breathe just a little bit easier. Well, that is until, right? There's always an until in life, until I round that curve. And I forgot to take into account that obviously someone sent out this memo to everyone on the 2-lane traffic road that I live on that it is the day to turn left across all the people trying to get where they're going, and then I'm stuck again. I can feel my blood pressure rising. It's getting up, but somehow I tend to talk myself back down. Then finally, they all make their turns, and I speed past it as quick as I can, and I try to take as much quickness to my schedule as I can make so I can make up for all this lost time. And I've been again to think again, I'm free and I can still make my appointment. That is, until I realize that there really must be tiny cameras on every single light on Highway 90. And I'm convinced that there's some 5-year-old that looks like an eBay baby that's looking at that camera, and his one goal in life is to press the button that turns it red and giggle as I have to lock up my brakes and slow me down yet again. And really the only reason I can believe this is because if I'm not in a hurry, they're all green. And if I'm trying to make up for all the slowdowns, they turn red just in time every time. The stop and go has got my nerves shot, and I'm already trying to replan my day to make up how this 30-minute drive all of a sudden has turned into an hour-and-a-half journey. Finally, I pull into the parking lot here at the church. I'm disheveled, I'm exhausted, I am spent. I'm in a bad mood, I'm stressed. I'm everything that you can imagine, and I believe, at least as far as I can tell, I'm probably not the only one in this room who's ever had this same experience. It happens to us all. I get out of the car, I unlock the door, and all of a sudden, I'll see a car pulling into that front parking lot. A gentleman gets out, and I realize it's my appointment. He's obviously ready for the meeting. He looks nice. He's usually carrying a cup of coffee that he probably got from Hardee's because he left in time, and I didn't. I'm frazzled. And after a moment of those obligatory greetings that we do with everybody sitting on the front and walk by, I turn around and notice that the car he's driving is the car that originally slowed me down as I pulled out of my driveway there at the end of my street. It's Tuesday. They don't go as planned. They just usually seem to happen. They're full of hurry up and waits, plans change, and all of a sudden frustrations that really didn't have to be, they're there. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, and that's exactly the kind of world that Jesus walked into the Tuesday before his crucifixion. You see, the beauty and fun of Sunday's parades that brought him into town, well, that's all faded. The party at Lazarus' house, well, it's long over. And then Monday, he had the rant in the temple, but it seemed to pass. It's just Tuesday. And plans have already begun. Things have been set in motion. And the stress that will come from knowing what's just around the corner is already building in his mind. And how do I know this? Well, let's look tonight at how Tuesday unfolded for Christ. Luke 20 records this. Luke 20 verse 1 says, "One day as Jesus was teaching in the temple, the people, and he was preaching the good news, the leading priests, the teachers of the religious law, and the elders came up to him, and they demanded, 'By what authority are you doing all of these things, and who has given you this right?'" You see, Jesus' plan, it was all set up. It was going just fine. He's preaching and he's teaching the good news. Everything was great. Everything was happening just as it was supposed to happen. And then all of a sudden, he's traveling down this road, and bam, out of nowhere comes the delays, the interruptions, and the slow car that's in the fast lane. It's Tuesday, and they happen. then Jesus sort of touches the gas a little bit. And if you don't believe me, I have my personal beliefs about Jesus. Maybe this is offensive to you. I hope not. But I believe Jesus is a master of sarcasm. He really is. I mean, I look through the Bible and all of a sudden, Jesus, at this line of questioning, looks at him and tells the story of a tenant farmer who's sitting there, and he sends his servants, and then he sends his head servants, and then sends his sons, and they kill him. And it really doesn't take a rocket scientist for those religious leaders to realize they're talking about me. And I think it's very easy to write into the narrative, and the religious leaders slithered back into that dark corner where they're at, and they planned their next attack. And that's where we see it in Luke. Luke writes this, you ready? Watching for their opportunity, talking about the religious leaders stuck over in the corner, watching for their opportunity, the leaders sent spies pretending to be honest men. They tried to get Jesus to say something that could be reported to that Roman governor so that he would arrest Jesus. Teacher, they said, we know that you speak and you teach what is right, and you're not influenced by what others say and think. You teach the way of God truthfully. Now tell us, is it right for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Then catch this. This is just a few verses later, beginning in verse 27. Then Jesus was approached by the Sadducees. You see, they are religious leaders who say there's no resurrection from the dead. And they pose this question, Teacher, Moses gave us a law that if a man dies, leaving a wife but no children, his brother should then marry that widow and have a child who will carry on that brother's name. You see, it's one after another. It's questions. Jesus' plan was to stand up and preach the gospel, to stand up and preach the news. And it's everybody else's plan that's getting in the way. You see, it's Tuesday. And you got to wonder, did Jesus ever just think to himself, what now? When they interrupted over and over and over again, and every time he would get a good pace going, another traffic light would decide to turn red. And each time he would overturn a new obstacle, another one would then land back in front of him. Folks, welcome to Tuesday. Tuesdays are tough. I think that it would be enough for me, at least at that point, to call it a day. But what if his own disciples got in the picture? What if his disciples decided to join in this brainless discussion that he has? Well, what if the people that he entrusted with this master plan of saving mankind all of a sudden began to drift on their own? Remember, this is on the heels of 2 days of dealing with the religious leaders. This isn't just that day. This is only hours past that he has passed up on the road this fig tree where he's telling his disciples and telling them about a tree that has leaves but bears no fruit. He shows them and tells them about people and places and rituals that look so full and so right, yet produce no results. This is only a day past the rant he had over in the temple, where Jesus then kicked out these same religious leaders, and he tried to refocus this ragtag group of believers back to prayer and to serving one another. And then there's this. A certain continuation of a Tuesday. Listen to what Luke records from Jesus' own disciples. Some of his disciples then began talking about the majestic stonework of the temple and the memorial decorations on the wall. Sounds like a committee looking to change the paint color on a room, doesn't it? Really, guys? Are you serious? We've spent the last 3 days talking about how this religious system isn't working. This temple, how it's been abused and how it's been misused. How the widows and the orphans and the hungry, they're not getting fed. And what you're wondering my friends, my disciples, what you want to know is what this is going to be decorated like when all of a sudden you get to move in? Seriously? The good news of the gospel is getting shared and you're really more wondering about the pattern and the paints of the room that it's going to get shared in? Oh, disciples, why did you have to come on a Tuesday? You see, it's Tuesday. And Tuesdays are rough. They wear you out. You have an idea of where you want to go, but for some reason, everyone and their brother is trying their best to get in your way. It's Tuesday, and it hurts. I'm guessing by this time, Jesus had to be absolutely exhausted. He had to be spent, and frankly, I'm surprised, but grateful, that he didn't just throw up his hands and walk out of the temple. Maybe that's you. Maybe your life feels like a Tuesday. You're in a hurry every single place you go. You run late more than your own time. Your kids and spouse sometimes drain more of you than they ever fill up. And every chance you think you have to catch up, a new traffic light decides to pop up on the road, and a Sunday driver tends to slow you down. And frankly, if I were to ask the question, are you exhausted? Your answer would just be a resounding yes. It's Tuesday, and Tuesdays are tiring. Tuesdays are tough. Tuesdays, they're life. I wonder if this is what Solomon was thinking when he penned this out of Ecclesiastes. Listen to this. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under this sun? Generations come and then generations go. But the earth, it never changes. The sun rises and then the sun sets and then it hurries back around again. The wind blows to the south and then it turns and it blows north, and round it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers, they run into the sea, but the sea, it never really gets full. Then the water, it returns again to the river, and yet again it flows out to the sea. Everything is just so wearisome. It's beyond description. And no matter what we see, we never feel satisfied. And no matter how much we hear, we're never really content. And I want to insert there, it's Tuesday. History, it merely repeats itself. He goes on to say it's all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here's something new, but actually it's old, as we'll attest to bell bottoms and other styles over the years, right? Nothing's ever really new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in future generations, no one will remember what we're doing now. Does that sound familiar? If we're not really careful, that same attitude that Solomon is expressing right there, it'll jump on us. It'll grab a hold of us. It'll land on our back, and we'll start to live our lives more like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh than as a saved man or woman of God. We'll start to begin to see things as meaningless, see things as tiresome, and then eventually, if the attitude sticks around, we begin seeing things as hopeless. This, friends, family, this is the theology of Tuesdays. They're busy. They just are. But most times, if we're honest, Tuesdays carry with us a feeling like we're not getting anything done. Our tires are spinning in the mud, and we're not moving forward, at least not at the pace we feel like we need to be marching. I believe that Jesus must have felt a little bit that same way. I even believe that he must have sensed from his disciples that same feeling. And yes, I believe that Jesus looked forward, and he sees us today having the same issues over and over again. And like Solomon said, it's nothing new under the sun. It's the same thing. It's Tuesday. Tuesdays are tough. Very quickly, I want to give you three things. Three things I see in Jesus' next talk that I believe that will help us get through these Tuesdays. I'm not going to read the entire passage. I do encourage you, however, to find it. Most philosophers and theologians would call this what's called the Olivet Discourse. It's where you find this speech of Jesus, and he's talking about the end of time, and he's talking about the temple that's going to be destroyed, and it follows this. This is where it happens. But I just want to pull three little things from this section, three little pieces from this. And without digging into the actual theology of it, I will simply say this. I believe that Jesus looked forward into today, into a time that everybody is feeling like the world is crumbling around them, and he speaks three very distinct things. Three things. Number one, if you stand firm, you will be saved. If you stand firm, you will be saved. If we're really honest with one another, we all have terrible Tuesdays. We just do. It's life. But just because the day seems long doesn't mean we're allowed to quit. It's just not one of those things we can do. I've had a life motto for as long as I can remember, and I really don't know when I picked it up, but I can tell you this, that if you go to Shades Valley in Birmingham, Alabama, and you pull my senior yearbook, next to my senior picture is this motto, and it has been mine as long as I can remember, and it just simply says this: when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot, hang on, and swing. Folks, listen to me. If you stand firm, you're going to be saved. Point number 2. Our message is our mission, and it will come to pass. Our message is our mission, and it will come to pass. Listen to this. This is actually in Luke, and then I'm going to read it in Matthew. But in Luke, it says, "Then everyone will see the Son of Man coming on a cloud with power and great glory." So when all these things begin to happen, stand up and look up, for your salvation, it's near. Listen to how Matthew records the same thing. Matthew said it like this: "And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the world so that all nations hear it." Folks, listen to me. If we're not careful, we forget our mission. Tuesdays tend to occupy our entire week. But folks, I want to tell you tonight, it's really not about having good days. And it's really not even about surviving the hustle and bustle of traffic lights and all the meetings that you may or may not have throughout a day. It's about letting others know about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Around here, we say it like this: I'm just one beggar telling another beggar where I found bread. Folks, listen to me. Fill your life with a very focused mission, and let that mission be of serving others. One quote over the years that's been attributed to St. Francis of Assisi is this. It says, "Go around the world preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and if necessary, use words." Listen, folks, it's all about serving. It really is. Listen, I've got something, if you're writing or taking notes, that I believe is worthy of writing it down. It says this: sharing the gospel message is not about standing up and preaching. It's about creating and living your life in a relational way to others so that they can see Jesus in you. Listen to that again. I want you to take that in. Sharing the gospel message is not about standing up and preaching right here at this pulpit. Sharing the gospel message, rather, is about creating and living your life in a very relational way to others so that they can see Jesus in you. Number 2 is our message is our mission, and it will come to pass. Point number 3. There's an end. There's an end. Listen to this. The second part of the Matthew verse I read just says this, and the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that the nations will hear it, and then the end will come. And then the end will come. Life is tough. Folks, it just is. And Tuesdays, they're going to come and go. But let me tell you one thing I know for sure. There is coming a time when all of this is over. There is coming a time when there's an end to all of the trouble and suffering.
I just want to say thank you for joining us for this amazing encounter through the life of Jesus, especially during the last few days and weeks leading up to the crucifixion and the resurrection. If this message blessed you, or if you need prayer, give us a shout out. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter, or you can email us at pray@jesusistherock.org. Your prayer requests actually encourage us throughout the week. Let me encourage you, if you'd like to give into this ministry, you can do this easily by going to jesusistherock.org and clicking on the giving button at the top right corner of the screen. While you're there, check out our other messages and blog posts. You have a blessed week. Hope to see you again soon.